to our channel. Here we're going to contribute to another type of videos, another type of journalism made from amazing channels. In this case, it's about Christina Randall. In her channel, in this video, she talks about an infant that becomes a murderer. And we're going to discuss the psychological profiling of this case. But first, she makes an excellent announcement at the beginning, just clarifying adoption, because in the case the kids are adopted, so so that you don't get mistakes or that you don't get confused, like she says in an amazing intro about adoption. So let's see what she says, and let's see what psychologically is correct and what can we add to it, right?
A lot of y'all used to ask me years ago, like, do I think that you should adopt? Do I think that you should foster children? You guys never hear me come on here in the videos and start advocating to everybody, right? Like, y'all, there's so many kids in the system. Go and get them. Go and get them. If you have the resources, you never hear me say that. And the reason why I don't is because it takes a certain type of person, in my opinion, to adopt or foster. You need to feel called to it. It needs to be in your heart, and you need to really feel called in order to do it. So that brings me to...
So, she says something amazing, that you have to feel and you have to be called for. So, a lot of people confuse having children to having an extent of themselves, having an extent of the last name, having an extent of what I can teach and what I want you to be taught on, my values, my things, you know. It's always about you as a father and not about the kid. And in this situation, what you've got to do is, first, you have to feel called for, and second, no expectations. You don't have to say, like, I want a baby. Oh, no, I want a teenager. No, I want a kid. I wanted a girl. I want a boy. I don't know. Go without expectations. Go to the place and actually feel your heart. I swear to you, your heart is going to link with somebody there, and you just have to feel it. And what do we call this? It's not reasoning. It's intuition. And you've got to feel it. Okay, because actually it's not that easy fostering people, but it's not easy also to be a father, to being a mother. Being a parent is something really hard, and I, as a psychologist, I'm always telling, like, please don't do it if you don't know what you're doing. If you're actually not going to give the 100% of yourself, don't have a kid. If you're gonna pay somebody to take care of your children for 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day or 3 hours a day, and you're not going to be with them, well, don't do it. Have your career, have your life. But if you want to have children, if you want to have a child, make sure you can give him your 100% in time also.
Today's story. And today's story is about two brothers named Elijah and Caleb Lishing. Elijah and Caleb Lishing were two brothers who were in the system due to being born to a young mother who was on substances. Their biological mother, whose name is Ashley, gave birth to her first child, who was Elijah, when she was just 15 years old. But during the time of Ashley giving birth prematurely to Caleb, she was given a urinalysis, or she was tested for what was in her system. And due to a failed test, her babies were taken from her, Elijah and Caleb, and they were put in the system. Now, it is said that the boys were placed in family services, and then I've seen different things. I've seen that, they've had family members to, come in and try to take the kids, and it was just different stuff. But the boys, they bounced around a bit, and then Ashley was actually going and visiting them for a while, and then she eventually ended up just signing her rights over. However, on April 23rd of 2018, 9:34 p.m., a 911 phone call came in. This call was made by a frantic babysitter that was at the house staying with the two boys while Marty and Dina were overseas on a trip. The babysitter is absolutely frantic. She says that there's something wrong with Caleb. She could see the blood. She could not find Elijah anywhere. She was like asking them to hurry up. Later, it had come out that she had sent the two boys to bed. You know, you've got the 11-year-old went to bed first, who was Caleb, and then she sent the 13-year-old, who was older, to bed a little bit later. And she thought they were sleeping until she heard a loud bang and went to go check on the boys. And this is when she found Caleb. Now, this time the cops, they're investigating, like, hold up, what's up? Like, okay, what's going on? The babysitter's flipping out. She don't know. She sent the boys to bed, but there is the older brother, 13-year-old Elijah, that is missing. As the cops began to make their way through the house, they found the gun cabinet that belonged to the grandfather. And it is obvious, because it was a locked cabinet, that somebody had broken into it and removed a weapon. The weapon would later be found to be a .357 Magnum. And it would also later be pieced together that the older brother, the 13-year-old Elijah, broke into the grandfather's cabinet, pulled out this weapon, and shot his 11-year-old sleeping brother in the throat. The bullet had actually went through him and into the wall while he was sleeping. The cops began to look for Elijah everywhere, and then they would find him hiding not too far from the house. They immediately arrested him on aggravated murder and booked him and took him down to the juvenile facility. And of course, everybody's trying to figure out why Elijah would go ahead.
Why? So this is why we have this channel, to give the psychological side of why. I have a really good theory about this case, and I'm going to explain it first, the theory, and then you're going to see the links, the clips that I've got from the video, so that you can actually follow my footsteps. But the thing is that actually he's never told why. So technically we don't know yet what is the truth, but it's in speculation. My speculation is that this kid was living hell all of his life, and his little brother was receiving hell all of his life. Now you're going to see why I'm saying this. But in a desperate move to get out of this hell, he thinks that you can actually kill yourself, kill your brother, and escape this type of reality, because you don't want this reality no more. But my theory is that, well, if you want to commit suicide and kill your brother also, so that you can both be free of this hellhole, you have to kill him before killing yourself. And for a kid, is not in his mind like killing cold blood. So he shoots his brother. He doesn't kill him. It goes through him. The kid wakes up. He's not dead. He's bleeding. He's bleeding. He's in pain. He's not dead. His brother doesn't know what to do. He panics and he stops his plan and goes running, I don't know, to hide. Not running because he has a plan and he knows where to go or something. No, he goes to hide nearby the home. That's where police find him. And now you're going to see why is it that my theory goes with this. But let's also see another type of possibilities. No, a child can also think that we're playing. You have the cool things about our grandfather. We have to play with this. We want to play pirates. We want to shoot or something, and you don't know what you're doing. It can be another possibility. Or it can be that he's a cold-blooded murderer and he was just trying to kill his brother instead. But let's see also what you think in the links below. And you, if you are agreeing with me, with my theory, well, let's see. Why is it that
plead no contest, and he was immediately found guilty by the juvenile court judge. The judge would later sentence Elijah to remain in juvenile detention until he was 21 years old. Well, because Elijah was now in the juvenile system, he was now in front of a lot of doctors and psychologists, and they began to talk to Elijah and try to figure out. And what it seemed like had happened was when he was young, living with his mother who had her struggles, he was neglected. Elijah would tell these those doctors' stories about being as young as 5 years old and being locked in the garage with all the lights off, completely dark, him screaming and crying, banging on the door, wanting to get in and not being able to. He also told the psychologist stories about his adoptive father or parents making him kneel on beds of rice at 5 and younger for long periods of time while he cried. And so these are just some of the things that we know. When a baby is ignored.
These are some of the things that we know. And you can see torture of 2 kids that were in a foster home get taken to a family that supposedly that is the best thing that's going to happen to you, and they demonstrate you that it's hell in this type of environment.
Ignored. And you guys, there are actual studies of this, okay? They had these studies where they had these babies that they did not touch. They just let cry, and they didn't, what happens when a baby is not touched and coddled and loved. And there's these studies where the babies didn't even grow. He developed what the doctors called reactive attachment disorder.
Reactive attachment disorder comes from, she actually explains a lot of this in her own video, but I'm going to tell you in the psychological way. It's a theory made from John Bowlby. It's called the attachment theory, and the theory is that when you're born, when you're growing up, how you're raised, it will get you 3 types of attachment. Reactive attachment is one of these 3 types. This type of attachment is an attachment that you, from really little, you know that you can trust anybody, and you know that you can be secure with anybody. So you're like a really independent kid, and you're like really, really perfect kid. He doesn't complain, he doesn't cry, he's just there. But if you get the blood samples, you can actually see all the changes in that body. He's really stressed, he's really tense, and it shows, And the experiment she's talking about is an experiment that goes long beyond and has different stages because a lot of people have replicated. The first one was a person that tried to make the perfect soldiers, and this fella made a nursery, an amazing nursery, to give these childs everything they need, but not love, because he wanted to make army men that doesn't feel this type of feelings. And they were treated with all the needs that a baby needs, all the basic needs that you know. But we found out that there is another basic need that without it, you die. And it's called attachment. You have to be hold on. If you get a baby, when it's born, you give him everything he needs, but not human contact. The baby actually shrinks and then dies. I have videos explaining this type of experiment and all the details about it. If you want to see it, I'm gonna link it out. But well, if you have more questions about it, we can go further with it. Now we will return to the case.
While Elijah continued to speak to professionals, he said this: I didn't realize that I loved my brother or that I loved my family until I lost it. I was living inside my head. I was unable to determine the difference between imagination and reality. I've changed though. I may not have my imagination or my emotions completely under control, but I am trying. Now,
This is a statement, one of the few statements that you have right now from him. But if you listen carefully, it's not his words. It's like he had like a lot of psychologists inside. They told him like, you were on your fantasy, you were on your mind, you didn't know the reality. You actually didn't feel attachment and love for your sibling because you had no attachment, because you had this type of growing up. But the thing is that it's like all the words didn't come from him, but he's like copying someone else, like the psychologist. And this theory like goes into like, I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what was love. And that's actually the attachment issue but also it doesn't explain actually the why. It could be the other theory I talked about.
Now, there was a guardian ad litem that was appointed to Elijah, and the guardian ad litem is supposed to speak on behalf of the child and advocate for the best interest of the child. Okay, now this person said this. This is a young guy who has been in a secure facility over 8 months and tells us that it's the happiest and safest that he's felt in his entire life. I think that's very telling, Your Honor. That part got me.
That part got me too. Yeah. When you have a home where they protect you and they make you feel secure and they feed you, then you can feel love. Then you can actually feel that you can grow up in this place. And I can tell you, in jail, they protected him and make it feel more secure than in this foster home. So yeah, it's not that the foster kids are damaged and they are like this. No, it's the people that get them, it's the people that want to be parents and grow children that make this type of psychological issues. And you can actually see when you give them a space that is secure, they can actually be themselves. If you have more questions about this, if you want me to go in some of the details, we're going to see more videos about Christina and more. But until the next time, see ya.